Good evening. Thank you for coming out tonight to the East Hampton Library. Tonight we have Laura Vanderbeek, who will be discussing her new book, The Hamptons, the Essential Guidebook to America's Most Fabulous Beaches. And before we begin, a little bit about Laura Vanderbeek. Laura has been shooting photography from the time she can hold a camera. She received her Bachelor of Fine Arts from the University of South Florida with a concentration in photography and sculpture. She's a published photographer, and her photographs are in private collections around the world. She's been shooting the sunrise and sunset on Long Island's East End for the past 4 decades. And without further ado, I'll turn over this evening's talk to Laura Vanderbeek.
I wanted to start with acknowledgments. And first, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Montaukett people. And I'm humbly aware of the native peoples that walked this beautiful land before us. I want to recognize the Montauketts who have stewarded this land for generations prior to the English arrival in the 1600s. I honor the beauty and the nature of this sacred place. This book is dedicated to my mother-in-law, who's here, my 93-year-old mother-in-law, Johanna. There she is, Johanna, and that's my husband, Max, who's here. And this photograph is Sedge Island in the background, which is right at the almost the entrance to 3 Mile Harbor. It's across from Bostwick's on the harbor, which is very appropriate because my mother-in-law used to have her own restaurant in Bostwick's on the harbor called Georgette's. Then my husband, who also was very instrumental in those early morning wake up calls for the sunrise each morning. And mostly everyone joined me for sunset. I didn't have a lot of sunrise company. My older son, Ryan Vanderbeek, was the layout wizard for this book. Without him, no book. I photographed and wrote the book and researched the history and all of the above, but Ryan was the real impetus in getting it on paper. And also, Ryan is the artist. And so Ryan's drawings, like this one of the Montauk Lighthouse, is at the beginning of every section of the book. So his beautiful drawings are there. And Clay Vanderbeek, my youngest son, is an actor in New York City and is with us this summer. And he was really the one who was packing our dinners to go to every sunset evening. So, and helping so much today, of course. We'll do a few photographs. Pretty spectacular place, huh? So now to the preface. So as I said, my mother-in-law, Johanna Vanderbeek, by way of her business partner, Georgette Sloan, got us all out to Long Island's East End, starting in the early 1970s, over 50 years ago. Georgette fell under the spell of the sea spray, the old homes, hydrangeas, artists and writers, the ocean, and the beaches, clamming, tag sales, and the list goes on. She insisted that Johanna get out here immediately. And since Johanna grew up on Miami Beach in the 1930s and 40s, an ocean town was her milieu. What chance did she have against Kismet? By the 1970s, Johanna and Georgette opened Georgette's Restaurant on 3 Mile Harbor, which I said before is now the Boswick's on the harbor. And they made their slow but sure ascent. And one evening, Craig Claiborne, the New York Times food critic, came in and wrote a great review, and the rest was history. My mother-in-law, being a beauty, she was the Orange Bowl queen in Miami in 1949, was the front of the house, hosting and welcoming a myriad of diners from John Lennon and Yoko Ono to Dick Cavett to the amazing reggae singer Jimmy Cliff and Gilda Radner. But a farm girl at heart, from the summers in her grandfather's farm in Virginia, she was just as much a get down and dirty in the kitchen type too. So she and Georgette would switch off front of house and back of house, alternating evenings. For Johanna, being an artist was a big draw to the East End as well. Her circle of friends were the artists and the writers and the fishermen. She was the happiest and most comfortable there. Her friends were a veritable who's who of what's happening in the world that counted the most for her, the world of creativity and action. The names are at the heart of what the Hamptons are, not behind the hedges, but those creating the buzz. Dan Ratina of Dan's Papers, Stuart Vorpal, the great fisherman, Jack Lenore Larson, her lifetime friend, the textile artist and the founder of Longhouse, Bill King, the sculptor, Elaine Benson, the gallerist, Lee Krasner, the painter, Francis Alenikoff, the dancer, Barbara Layton, the restaurateur of Babette's. And the list goes on. Mim Schwartz of Stephen Talkhouse, Elaine de Kooning, abstract painter, Sue Gosman of Gosman's Restaurant. Many of these beautiful people are gone now. But this was her Hamptons, the creatives, the heartbeat of the place. It's a whole lot of names, but these were her friends and her circle. I like to imagine before the artists and writers and before the English settlers came to the East End, that the Nantucket people relished the sunrise and sunset as I do. I photographed the sunrise and sunset every single morning and every single evening. During the pandemic summer of 2020, I decided that I would spread my wings a bit and head out to other beaches that were not on my usual beaten path. I was really loving the discoveries I was making. And at that time, outdoor activities were really what we could do outside, getting picnic dinners together and seeing the sunset du jour. I've been photographing the sun here for 4 decades, but the summer of 2021 was my reckoning of sorts. I was putting these incredible photographs on my social media, and I would accompany them with a great sunrise, sunset, summer song, which you heard some when you came in. And I fell into this fun groove, pun intended, of posting these, and friends and family were enjoying them. And a number of people were asking, when are you going to write your book? So that brings me to today. Here we are, a beautiful collection of nature's glory, mornings and evenings, sun up, sun down, as reliable as can be. Some days she was elusive, and I got to sleep in. Little more these days lately, hiding her face, and I did love those days too. Every day anew, no 2 days alike. My husband would sometimes ask, what motivates you to get up so early? You know, at the beginning of the summer, it's about 5:15 when the sun starts to rise. And I would say, take a look at the array of suns that grace the pages of this book and here. And how can I not? I'd say this is the greatest show that is happening today. How can I miss it? Besides the visual besides the visual spectacle of what each day brings, it's also the communion with nature that soothes my soul. It's my conversation with the sacred, with the universe, with my beloved. It's my meditation. It's how I make sense of the world. The sun rises and sets equally for each of us. My wish for you is that this book might spark your wonder and awe for this extraordinary place and for this beautiful orb we call the sun. A few more photos, and I'll move on to the structure of the book. That was that same Sedge Island. Dinner party they had to go to, and they just came for the first bit. So, could we put the table of contents up, and um, I'll talk a little bit about the book, the structure of it, and that's okay. That's okay. And how to use it. I'll read the back while we're getting. Oh, there's the drawing from Ryan. That's what drawings. So this book was written as a guide for those who love the East End beaches, or for those who might be newly exploring their beauty. It's especially for those who like to start and or end their day at the beach. This book shows you which beach is a sunrise or sunset beach. Using a handy icon I designed, you can see up there at the top. So that would be a sunset beach. And that's the description page. So in the book, you'll find a photograph of a sunrise or a sunset. Would be adjacent to the description page from the 34 official beaches under the umbrella of the Town of East Hampton. A brief history on each page, with each beach rather. Amenities in each of those locations goes from almost nothing, maybe like 2 parking spaces, to, a full array of lifeguards and snacks and the whole bit, bathrooms and bike racks and on and on. And one of my favorite parts of the book is also at the very bottom. So we have the description of where the beach is, history, amenities, and then have pair with, but not wine. It's a summer song that you can listen to while you're reading. And I'm quite proud that at the end of the book is, I'll show this better when the lights are on, is a playlist for Spotify and for Apple. Oh, you got it right there. Thanks. For Apple and Spotify, and you can just use our code and have the playlist up. They're really great. They're really fun summer songs too. So I'm almost more proud of making a QR code than I am writing this entire book. It's that was really, I was very proud of myself. So okay, so should we go to the table of contents? Is that before? Yeah, here we go. Okay. So um okay, so one thing that is a little confusing sometimes if you're not aware is that the town of East Hampton, it covers, if I get them in order, Wainscott, the village of East Hampton, Amagansett, Springs, Napeague, and Montauk. And officially there's 34 beaches, but we know there's many, many more. But according, the town, and they take care of and have lifeguards and things like that at 34 official places. So that's the order from west to east. So it starts with Wainscott. Wainscott only has ocean beaches, so it doesn't have ocean and bay beaches. Village of East Hampton also only has ocean beaches. But then when you, well, I guess it's a little tricky because the Village of East Hampton are those 5 ocean beaches, and they have a different sticker for your car. So it kind of delineates that. But then there's East Hampton Bay beaches, Springs Bay beaches, Amagansett Bay beaches, and we're just going from west to east. And then Amagansett Ocean beaches, Montauk Ocean beaches, Montauk Bay beaches. So it's organized that way, west to east. Okay, you can, yeah. The ocean beach was Indian Wells. That was our beach, and you'll have to tell me what your favorite beach is. And but when your guys were really little, it was Fresh Pond. That was the Bay Beach that we would go to because that was just warm and shallow and perfect for kids. So those were our mainstays. But that's what happened in the pandemic for me was, since outdoor activities were really our thing, that you would do. So I just started going to different beaches. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, this is just one more spectacular than the next. It really was incredible. And so first I intended to write a coffee table book. That was really because the photographs are really my main thing. So I was going to write this coffee table book, but the librarian in Amagansett, Jacqueline, was so sweet. And she kept saying, well, can't you just maybe do like a guidebook? She said, I could really use that. She said, because when anybody calls, and as we all do, call the library for information, she said, we don't have a comprehensive place really to go. And it's certainly a small town in the winter, and it's not top of the priority list for the few people here to know if there's a bike rack at Barnshole, So I said, okay, all right, I'll do it. And then it turned into this incredible research project that I had no idea I was going to be taking on, but it ended up being so much fun. But it was actually quite challenging to find, because I wanted to write a little brief history about each beach. So some you'll see it's a little more sparse, and some I have a lot to say because depending on how much information was available. I personally, over the years, have collected a lot of self-published books at yard sales, and I have this great book by Sylvia Mendelman about 3 Mile Harbor, and other self-published books that people that had expertise in certain areas. So that was nice because I had my own library to refer to some things. But so did you show a map or not. It's a more of a stylized map, but it does have what's what, wainscot, it shows you where these title pages are. Um, all right, so I think what I'd love to do is get a little more specific about a couple of the beaches close to here. Start with Wyborg. So some of the history is just it was so much fun to read about. So Wyborg Beach is sort of right in the middle of the village of East Hampton beaches. And just one thing to know is if you don't have a village sticker, then before 9 a.m. and after 6 p.m., you're free to park there. And so for me, I was always there at 6 o'clock in the morning, so I can go to any beach I want, so but good to know if you are an early morning person, you can get a lot of sun time before the sticker is needed. But Wyborg Beach is actually named after a person. So the Wyborgs were a family of enormous wealth. Frank Wyborg was an ink manufacturing tycoon from Cincinnati. In 1896, they bought 600 acres along the ocean next to the Maidstone Club and built a 30-room shingle and stucco mansion. Mr. Wyborg died in the early 1930s, and his daughters inherited the estate. Eldest daughter, Sarah, was married to Gerald Murphy, was the heir to Mark Cross, an American luxury brand that still exists today. They were said to be the models for Dick and Nicole Diver, the central couple in F. Scott Fitzgerald's novel Tender is the Night in 1934. Sadly, after the Great New England Hurricane of 1938, which was the strongest and most deadly ever to hit Long Island, Sarah made the decision to demolish the home. In 1941, the East Hampton Fire Department burned it down for practice. So amazing, right? Just incredible story. So, but don't feel sorry for the Weibergs because they had a gigantic house where the people that helped them on the estate lived, and they had another whole beautiful home that, was fine. Oh, okay. Here's another. Now we're moving toward Amagansett, but to me, this is one of the most fascinating and really fantastic things that I discovered that I knew a little bit about, but I didn't really know the real how special this is. So if you start at Atlantic Avenue, so you're in Amagansett, you're at Atlantic Avenue Beach on the ocean. And if you start there, there's a spectacular thing called the Atlantic Double Dunes. So, when you're on the ocean, you always see it just rises up to a dune. Well, from Atlantic Avenue all the way to where the Wyborgs were, all the way to, where does it go? To the Maidstone Club. It goes all the way to the Maidstone Club. So imagine from Atlantic Beach all the way to Maidstone Club, 2.5 miles. It's called Atlantic Double Dunes because there's a primary and a secondary dune that run parallel to each other and to the ocean. Ecological wonder is actually a freshwater wetland and is home to many migrating birds. In the spring, the dunes are important to the songbird migration, and in the fall, for the butterfly and dragonfly migration. This rare, undeveloped barrier beach and back dune ecosystem help the species residing in or utilizing this ecosystem with their survival. I just love thinking of this 2.5 mile stretch and the foresight that it took to create those, those double dunes and protect that and not let development and nothing happen there. It's really amazing how and how important it is, to songbirds and butterflies, and they have a place to rest and and have fresh water. That's another fascinating thing to me. So that's another interesting one. Um, Now I'm going to go to a Bay Beach, which is just a little spot called Barnes Hole Beach, which you may have been to before. It's really one of the lesser um, known and also very few amenities. There's really just a couple of parking spaces, and I think that's it. So, um, but it's a really beautiful and quiet beach, and it has lovely views of Gardiner's Bay. It's a sunset beach. It's a bay. It's on Gardiner's Bay. And it's possibly named for Isaac Barnes, one of the four founders of Amagansett. So if you if you're there and just a 1/4 mile walk south, you'll see the remains of the old Bell Pier, built in 1931 as part of the Bell estate. Dr. Bell first bought a 155-acre property and slowly acquired the nearby properties. Eventually, he amassed a total of 556 acres. The property was later purchased by Reginald and Loida Lewis after the death of Mrs. Bell. Reginald and Loida were both lawyers, and he was the first African-American billionaire. The 21-room Georgian-style home burned down in 1991. I don't know what's there now, and if they still own it, or I both passed away. I'm forgetting now. Lloyd is alive. Oh, okay. So Lloyd is, do you know if she still has the property, or, okay. She's, oh, great. Nice. Nice. Well, maybe there was some other home like with the Wyborgs on that, since it was such a big, I know over the years, all those properties were, parts were sold and things like that. It's a lot to maintain and things. Oh, that's nice to know. That's nice to know. I did remember that Reginald, I remember reading that he had passed away and I wasn't sure. So that's good to know. Yeah, so that's another just amazing story to know. So um another favorite of mine, which is a Bay Beach. Sammy's Beach is located, it's also on Gardiner's Bay. It's located on the west side of the mouth of 3 Mile Harbor, across from Maidstone Beach. So Maidstone Beach is on this side. 3 Mile Harbor, the mouth goes, you go out, and then if you go around this way, if you're on a boat, if you go around that way, that's Sammy's Beach. So driving, it's kind of far from each other because you have to go all the. Oh, another little thing I learned. 3 Mile Harbor is not 3 miles long. 3 Mile Harbor is exactly 3 miles from the town of East Hampton, sort of like the downtown. So they used to say 3 miles to the harbor, and then it just became 3 Mile Harbor. So it's actually 3 miles to, so that was fun because of course I always thought it was 3 miles long. So Sammy's Beach, if you go out the mouth of of the 3 Mile Harbor Inlet. So it's this direction. Um, it's a 116-acre nature preserve. And it's a short walk through seagrass and sand dunes from the parking lot. But I didn't know that that was a huge, really a huge nature preserve. This little inletted jewel is a gorgeous sunset beach with soft sand and lots of jingle shells, the little orange and yellow ones. Those are called jingle shells for the picking. A great spot for bird watching as well, and a favorite spot for catching bluefish. There's a lot of fishermen there catching bluefish. It's said that the beach is likely named after Samuel Parsons, who bought the peninsula in 1731. It's an interesting sunset because there's a jutted out piece of land. It's kind of a horseshoe shaped, so it's not like a sunset right over the water. It kind of goes down a little before. There's a few of those bay beaches are like that, but it's just very special in this little inlet there. That's a really beautiful one. Couple more of these little, okay. Um, so I'm going to move out to Montauk and stay on the bay beach, because this beach was probably my biggest surprise. Floating Point Beach. I never knew anything about this beach. So it's actually on Block Island Sound. And I say you need a 4-wheel drive and make sure someone knows you there. Like I dropped Max off to go surfing at Ditch Plains, and then I went to try to see the oh no, yeah, he went surfing and I went to try to see the sunset. And I was like, this is insane. It's like rocky and sandy, and I mean, it's just go with a friend. I was by myself. Your phone doesn't work. It's just like, I thought, am I ever gonna, he'll never find me again. But it really is spectacular. You'll see this photo up here, but there's like this huge staircase going um uh it's a rocky beach, and but it's but it so Culloden Point marks the east entrance to Fort Pond Bay from Block Island Sound. It's named for the Royal Navy's HMS Culloden. During the Revolutionary War, this warship sank at that spot in 1780. The crew was saved, but the ship was not. Its debris and wreck site is the only underwater park on Long Island. Where the HMS Culloden lies is now an official archaeological site, and it's listed on the state and federal registers of historic places. However, this is not a place to treasure hunt. It's illegal to remove anything. But very cool place to know about and to see. It's an interesting beach. So maybe we'll end with our famous surfing beach, Ditch Plains, because there it is. I mean, it doesn't even look like you're in York, you know? I mean, it's such a, oh, here's a little visitor to Ditch Plains. And when there were some kids that came to one of the talks, and when they saw the Ditch Witch, they got so excited. Forget the sunrise and the sunset. They saw the Ditch Witch. That was snacks. So, oh, there's somebody I know. All right. So Ditch Plains is a surfer's paradise. Vast stretch of beachfront surrounded by majestic bluffs in the background offers a beach experience like no other in the Hamptons. The construction of a man-made jetty around 1957 off the coastline, so it creates a consistent set of waves for great surfing. And you'll find a mixture of swells generating sometimes 6 to 9 foot surf. And be sure, oh, here, that's a broader view. So if you haven't, sure to hike up the bluffs for a fantastic view from the top. They say in Ditch Plains, the end, as in Montauk, the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight.